So, Professor, your title is UN Independent Expert on Human Rights and International Solidarity. What does solidarity mean?
Solidarity is the positive corollary to non-discrimination. It's the act or expression of inclusion of persons in the enjoyment of human rights. It's the right to have rights.
Can you talk about that maybe in a little more layman's terms about what that might mean in a practical sense, solidarity?
In a practical sense, it means that we have really high levels of inequality around the world, both internally and externally. And so we're seeing large groups of people who are being denied their right to socioeconomic rights, like the right to housing, the right to food, the right to health care, but also civil and political rights that people are being repressed from being able to engage in expression online, etc. So solidarity would be an action that you take or an expression that you make calling for the right of that person to have access to enjoyment of that right. So you could actually argue to give digital access to a person or to build housing for underprivileged people.
In this sort of current era when there's so much polarization, so much conflict around the world, what does all that mean? How does one practice solidarity?
We recognize that as human beings, an intrinsic aspect of being human is connecting to other people. And this was broken during COVID-19. We became disconnected and we haven't recuperated. So we have really a responsibility now to build up those connections with each other and to accept that we have responsibility for each other. And this is something that will demand engagement from all people, young people, old people, everyone.
In your travels, in your experiences, your work, have you seen a particular example, a particular place or country where you're seeing solidarity expressed in the right way or in a positive or impactful way?
Well, I was sent to Suriname, and there I got to see a rehabilitation center for young men who have committed small crimes or fallen out of society. And the social workers there that were engaged in providing these young men with education and confidence to re-engage in society was really inspiring.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, Suriname is a particular country with a particular history. They were formed with a colonial period in which the Netherlands controlled the country. They brought in workers from India, from China. They had indigenous people, they had Africans, and they all intermarried. And they created a society that recognizes a concept of unity and diversity, of showing mutual respect for each other. So they celebrate each other's holidays, and they eat each other's food, and they wear each other's dress, and they recognize each other in a way on a level of equality that I've never seen anywhere else.
And how does that get expressed through what you were talking about, that program?
The program regarding the children, the youth?
Yeah.
Well, basically they engage the young people in educational programs, but they also have sports facilities where they can engage in athletics, and they have counseling sessions in which they will discuss with the young people the traumas they've been through in order to work through challenges they have in dealing with those issues and finding a more positive way to engage.
It sounds like it's sort of an example too of what you spoke about in the lecture and you've talked about elsewhere, which is the importance of localization in a way of adapting the solutions or the expressions of solidarity to the particularities of a situation, so that it fits and applies and works in that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, this is the beauty of humanity, that we come in many shapes and sizes and forms and backgrounds. And so forming solidarity is something that we recognize within our own communities, base it our own realities, and accepting that we have challenges, whether it be inequality between men and women, or destruction of the environment, or a need to engage on development. If we partner with each other and we sort of clean house locally, if we imagine all communities engaging in solidarity actions around the world, that there is a possibility of really strengthening peace in a way that has never been done when we had top-down approaches.
And it's not one size fits all.
That's right, yeah.
You talked in your lecture and elsewhere as well, of course, particularly about women as agents of solidarity and young people as well. Is there anything you'd like to elaborate or perhaps reinforce about either of those two groups?
Well, it's always been said that women have a way of approaching issues that exhibit a natural empathy or a concept of care. And for a long time in international affairs, these approaches were not really recognized. But now we're seeing groups like lawyers arguing cases before courts where they're calling for a recognition of the obligation of care and empathy. And the transferring of these more feminine ways of approaching things to reimagining the state from that lens, it underscores the obligation of the state to protect the most underprivileged, be it the elderly, children, or disabled people.
Right. And then maybe to wrap up, is there a particular, if someone says, how can I do something as just one individual, what would you say to that person as to how they can start to get involved or start to act in terms of solidarity?
Well, I was being interviewed for a podcast in Norway, and the interviewer was saying that his son was complaining that the local government had not picked up the recycling. So you can imagine my response to him was to tell his son that he could very well pick up the recycling bag and deliver it to the recycling center himself. So we have to, instead of pointing fingers to other people for the lack of solution to our problems, we have to really just decide which problems are we able to manage ourselves and actually take action and be proud of ourselves that we showed solidarity for neighbors or the neighborhood, and this maybe will change our culture.
In this day and age, with what we've spoken about, the polarization, etc., some might say solidarity is a luxury, but would you like to respond to that notion?
Solidarity is a life jacket. We are seeing a normalization of violence in which there's no doubt that we will have a large risk of armed conflict around the world that will impact everybody. So I choose to say that we can go in a different direction, that we can decide that we will act in solidarity with each other, that we will extend networks of connection, and decide that we commit to peace. This to me is essential.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Perfect.